Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's beautiful March 17th, 2025. Come with this episode of the Crusty podcast, episode 352, Canada's ongoing slack defense. That's right. Mr. Mark Carney, Blarney Carney, Commie Carney, Carbon Tax Carney, wants to have a good substantial review over Canada's procurement of the F35 Fighter jet. Oh, just when you think things were getting better, according to the liberal mindset. We got to have another review and compromise our defense even more because a handful of people just don't like what's going on with the United States. Oh, my goodness. Listener review discretion is advised because I will swear, smoke cigarettes, and speak my mind as per. Make fun of our leaders and all that good stuff. See you in a bit.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthy.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 352 on this beautiful St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2025. Oh, my goodness. Keep your drink to yourself for now. Wait till the show is over. Anyway, this podcast is brought to you in part by and supported by Veterans for Freedom, Stand 2. And coming soon, Veterans Freedom Network. That's right, Veterans Freedom TV. Like-minded individuals such as myself and other veterans hopefully will come together in a big network and have all these great podcasts and shows and skits for you. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Happy St. Patty's Day. I'm going to be kind of fast and furious here, too, because I got a lot of this information coming out. Basically, defense procurement, like I said in the title card, defense procurement. It's a big joke. Okay. And it doesn't matter what Trump said or what George W. Bush said or what Obama Obama said or what Joe Biden said. The Canadian people are saying enough. And we got to get shit or get off the pot here. It's just been brought to my attention that Mr. Mark Carney, all of a sudden wants to review the F-35 purchase. Now, apparently there's already been 16 that have been set aside for Canadians, to help our Air Force out in these troubling times. However, the government wants to sit around and review it again, kind of like what they did with the helicopter issue back in the 1990s. Okay. There was a situation back in 1998 where 4 pilots were killed in the Labrador because of just aging old equipment. Some subtle pilot error, but just the fact that things were breaking down. And the government at the time didn't want to do anything about it, right? And now I've got some stories here about the whole fiasco from the 90s and the early 2000s in regards to the Chrétien government and their slacking out of procurement. Not to mention an article I'll be reading from the National Post from 2 years ago in regards to what the PBO had to say about spending money on defense issues and what have you. So, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you like and hear you see, click like, subscribe, share this content, all of your social media platforms. Do not be shy and speak your mind. Give me a thumb up, give me a comment, give me a like, and subscribe. And I want to say thank you out there to everyone who has subscribed in the past couple months. I am now at to 12,200 plus. That's right, because of wonderful people like you all out there. Like all yous, please. Well done, everybody. Thank you very much because you help me, help yourself. You're informed. I get my words out. People listen. And they tell 2 friends and 2 friends, et cetera, et cetera. Anyhow, like I said, in this episode, we're talking about the whole defense review thing. There's Blarney Carney and his communist carbon tax wisdom wanting to review the whole F-35 again. Now, personally, I think Canada would be better off with getting the brand new F-18s. I think the F-18s I'm not exactly sure. That's just me, though, because I think about what's going to be great in the Arctic, what's going to handle the Arctic, the high atmosphere and the altitudes and everything there to get rid of the baddies that want to sneak and peek over our ice shields. That's just me, though. But needless to say, the time to shit off the pot. We don't have time to waste anymore when it comes to getting things done, because not only do we have American leaders telling us, hey, Canada, smarten up, start pulling your weight. We've got some of our European allies starting to show us up. Okay, even those European countries that have smaller population and smaller land masses, okay? And they're starting to pull their weight. So what's our excuse, ladies and gentlemen? Please let me know. What is our excuse for our slack and idle defense procurement process? It comes down to one thing: money, as always. Now, does Canada have the money? Sure we do. We're part of the G7. We've got lots of money to give away here. Lots of money to give away there. Here, there, slap and tickle for someone else's pickle and your wallet. I say that a lot because I think it's funny, but it speaks some truth. Okay, it speaks a lot of truth here. When Canada decides to buy something, there's a whole fucking process that we have to go through. And you need a board member here and a board member there and a few more board members here. Before you know it, there's a lot of people getting paid before, for example, a tank hits the road. A lot of people are getting paid and considered for promotion before any kind of wheel hits the ground, or any kind of aircraft takes off, or any kind of ship gets launched. There's a lot of bureaucracy. And I will give you an example of that when I read these articles here. But for my time in the military, we used to hear it all the time about the procurement board, or what these constituents want, or what those constituents want. Okay. And when I did my federal campaign, every constituent I talked to had always something positive to say about the military and how the federal government should step up to the fucking plate. And this is back in 2021. So when you talk about the constituents, they never really talked about it. Oh, really? But all these constituents out of nowhere thought the carbon tax was just spectacular. Hey, hardly. So with this whole new review thing, do you really think Mr. Carney and all your loyal followers, okay, like those little aliens from Toy Story, the master, do you really think it's worth it? Okay, I'll ask you that. Okay, because like the old story goes, everyone hates a soldier or a barbarian. Everybody hates a soldier till the enemy is at the gates, right? Well, our gates are failing. The way of keeping the gates closed and defending said gates are failing. And not because of the men and women in uniform. It's the men and women that are supposed to back up the men and women in uniform. The people we elect, the people we put in charge of these things. So instead, ladies and gentlemen, if you're an MP and happen to be watching us, stop fucking worrying about your portfolio and get on with it. Get on with it, for fuck's sakes. Right? You don't need any more boards. Like I'm so sick and tired of hearing about procurement board this. We have to bring this to the board. Right? There's already so many bureaucrats in this government already that try to dictate our lives on an hourly basis. When it comes to taxation, when it comes to liquor, when it comes to food, when it comes to how we scratch and what we say and what we think about. Right? Now, I don't have any articles to back up my claim with Mr. Carney, but in a way, it doesn't surprise me. Okay? Because every federal government that's come in has made a lot of fucking bells and whistles in regards to promises when it comes to getting our military sorted out. Meaning having a military that can deploy from A to B with no problems. Or go on a peace support mission, or go on a humanitarian mission, or heaven forbid, another dirty fucking war. Right? Like during my time in Afghanistan, yeah, we had to ride some British helicopters and use some American helicopters. Right? But we kicked ass and took names. And it was difficult. When you see some of your compatriots go. But then when we got home, we got some support. Some of us didn't, but some lads did. So there's still that lingering of the Canadian mantra, the Canadian mandate when it comes to looking after our soldiers. It used to be done back in the First World War and the Second World War, and especially Korea. Okay? But somewhere we had this shift where, only break glass in case of war kind of thing. But then the glass started failing and the glass started cracking, getting frail. And then what? Oh, it's someone else's fault. We'll just throw more money at it. But that's not the answer, ladies and gentlemen. Right back after this.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 352, Canada's ongoing slack defense. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck, and I want to say a special thank you out there to a Chuck and Karen out of Jefferson City, Missouri. Chuck made a couple of good adverts for me, a couple of promos. He's a radio guy, and he likes my show. He likes what I have to say. I'm not going to read his email for verbatim, but he went out of his way to make me some adverts and some intros. So thank you very much, Chuck and Karen out of Jefferson City, Missouri. You guys are awesome. Right? Give yourselves a round of applause there. Thank you very much. And I'll cue that up later in the show and play for you all to listen. But I'm going to read an article from the National Post here for you, ladies and gentlemen, and really pay attention to some of the things that are said here. Okay. And it's just, I just find it fascinating how the government just doesn't care. They don't. You can't be that stupid and you can't be that smart all at the same time. But they just don't care. And I'd have to say it's because of the arrogance of them relying on the Americans to look after things all the time, rather than, treating them with respect and as an ally. And then maybe they can help out once in a while. We can help them out once in a while too. But we don't have the ability to help them out. You see what I'm getting at here? So this is an article from the National Post by Brian Passifume, dated June 9th, 2023. It's a 4-minute read, so bear with me, folks, if you can catch my drift. And I'll leave this in the description for you to follow at your own time, ladies and gentlemen, right? So here we go. Lack of domestic defense industry. Bureaucracy hindering Canada's military procurement, says PBO, right? Reliance on foreign equipment and doubling up of purchasing authority is hamstringing defense obligations. Canada's continued reliance on foreign military procurement, as well as an inefficient doubling up of purchasing authority, is hamstringing Canada's ability to meet defense targets, right? Says Parliamentary Budget Watchdog, Parliamentary Budget Officer Yves Giroux. Remember him when he said the carbon tax isn't a good thing and these rebates mean fuck all? Anyway, I'm digressing. Appeared before the House National Defense Committee Friday morning to provide insight on recent reports on Canada's defense policy, including his office's October 2022 report on life cycle costs of Canada's surface combatants ships shipbuilding initiative, and their June 2022 analysis of Canada's attempts to meet NATO's 2% defense spending benchmark, and its 2022 examination of planned capital spending under Canada's strong, secure, engaged defense policy. Basically, the strong, secure, engaged policy is no better than the 1987 and 1994 Defense White Paper report. Anyway, regarding to the latter report, Giroux said he determined that Canadian government was underspending with respect to what is outlined in current defense policy, the tune of $8 billion over 4 years. The government at that point, when we realized that report, had revised its capital expenditures to make up for that shortfall, he told committee. PBO analyst Christopher Penny told the committee that in 2022-23 saw capital spending shortfalls of $1.5 billion compared to what was outlined in strong, secure, and engaged, with shortfalls this fiscal year of around $4 billion. There was over $10 billion planned spending under SSE for 2023, 2024, and only $6 billion was asked for the estimates, Penny said. Responding to questions from Liberal committee member Darren Fisher on how best to streamline military procurement, Giroux said Canada's smaller than average homegrown defense production base is having a negative impact, particularly when paired with policies favoring procurement from local vendors. Right there, we're at a disadvantage, especially if we insist on having Canadian-made major equipment, and the government, for obvious reasons, often insist on domestic production, he said. See, that's reliance. Oh, Canadian industry can do it, but then they can't decide which is the better one. That severely limits the competitive base on which the government can tap. Giroux said there's a definite value in having domestic defense production capacity, but warned against policies that make Canada overly reliant on local production when more cost-efficient options exist overseas. Okay? There are options. The thing is, our procurement board limits those options. Okay? And our government, too, by some strange coincidence. Oh, yes, of course. Oh, yes. Right? It's difficult to meet all constraints if you also add domestic production, he said. Canada has a small industrial defense base, so if any government insists on domestic production, it's very difficult to have sound competition that will also drive down costs, right? The only way to square that circle, he said, is to make commitments to source domestically with benchmarks to allow for foreign procurement if the numbers don't make prudent financial sense. Exactly. You don't let competition thrive. That's what happens. You won't let foreign investment inside Canada. Oh, who knew? But then that would be a breach of domestic production capacity policy, and that would leave Canada exposed to foreign suppliers in case of a war outbreak that would require significant ramp up of production, he said. Well, shit or get off the pot. What do you say to that? Juggling competition with speed, expediency, and financial prudence, Giroux said, requires a delicate balancing act between cost and value for money, while also ensuring, as had been the government's policy for some time now, to develop a domestic defense capability, he said. Okay? It's one thing to procure major equipment from abroad, but in the case of war, it doesn't guarantee us that we'll be the first to be served. We'd probably be at the back of the queue. Numerous means exist to improve defense procurement in Canada, he said, but explained that both specialization and single point accountability are key. Streamlining procurement, Giroux said, could be achieved by ensuring single points and both contact and accountability in Canada's defense procurement framework. So, needless to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave this article in the description for you to follow, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Too many bean counters, too many bureaucrats. Everyone wants to have their piece of the pie, but they don't want to take any time to get the ingredients to bake it properly, right? No, fucking bureaucrats. Board. What does the board say? Who gives a fuck about the board? What do the people say?
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
Anyhow, you're back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 352 of the Crusty Canuck podcast, Canada's ongoing slack defense. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck, and I'm going to play that radio advert that my new friends out of Jefferson City, Missouri, put together for me there, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoy it. I'm just going to cue it up here properly so everyone can hear it in a timely manner, right? And you decide, ladies and gentlemen. This is from Chuck and his wife in Jefferson City, or from Jefferson City, Missouri.
Ever hear of the Crusty Canuck? Welcome to something new and refreshing. Sure, you're invited to tell him what you think. Then again, he's going to tell you what he thinks. How come he's always right? Amazing, isn't it? Just go to crustycanuck.ca for liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness, Canadian style. One visit is all it takes.
And that was Chuck for giving me a great advert. So thank you very much, Chuck and Karen. That was wonderful of yous. And I want to say thank you out there, too, to everybody who has subscribed so far. Like I said, 12,200 plus subscribers now on the tube because of you wonderful people. Thank you. Once again, I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. If you'd like to hear to see, click like, subscribe, share this content on social media platforms. Do not be shy, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what's on your mind. If you see this premiered, give me a thumbs up. Tell me where you're writing from. All my regulars tell me all the time. That's fine. Anyone new watching this, anyone from Europe, United States, please let me know. I don't mind. I'm not going to be prejudiced here. I'm not going to pinpoint. Fuck the politics. I just want people to listen to what I have to say. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's great too. Contact information is in my description, and donation links in my description too. If you feel like donating, please consider donating. I might have to get me a new one of these things here too. Having some issues. I pre-recorded part of this episode before, and it was like the mic wasn't even on almost. And I can hear the playback and the feedback here as I'm trying to get this sorted out, ladies and gentlemen. But it's all to you wonderful people. So procurement, a joke in this country. It is. Too many people sit in their hands worrying about getting paid. And I had a little conversation with an ex-sailor there a few years back who was telling me an interesting story. And I actually wrote some of these notes down. And I tried to remember it as best I could. He was out of the Navy, got a job with a procurement in Halifax. And to make a long story short, basically, it took him 2 weeks to decide what kind of tires to buy for a pickup truck, or about, I think, 3 or 4 of them anyway. It took him about 2 weeks to decide that. Now, how long does it take you and I if we have to replace tires in our vehicle, right? It took me about a day, okay? And even if I had, let's say, 10 pickup trucks to look after, or 20 pickup trucks to look after, if I was a fleet manager, I would make a pretty simple decision, depending on what kind of contract you have with the locals, whatever tire store or tire venue, okay? But then again, you got to be practical and pragmatic because you're dealing with other people's money, taxpayers' money. So when it comes to the bidding process, I just read you an example in the National Post about that. Now you get these clowns and procurement boards who can't decide what to fucking do. So if it takes 2 weeks to decide what kind of tires to get for 10, 20 trucks, you know, what's that going to tell you about requiring 10 or 20 tanks or 10 or 20 APCs or infantry fighting vehicles or 10 or 20 ships? Now, I had a video queued up here from Scott Taylor from Esprit de Corps. He did an excellent story on the naval procurement issue. And I'll leave that in my description for you to follow, ladies and gentlemen, just due to time constraints, what have you. But we don't have the time to fuck around and gamble anymore. Okay? And if it means you have to cut some services, so be it. And now I'm not saying certain social programs, but there's a lot of top-heavy brass that sits in Ottawa right now, on the civilian side and on the defense side. And in order to cut costs and bring money to the table, maybe we should cut from the top. Because in order to save the milk, you got to cut the cream. Use the cream for other things, like dessert toppings for your coffee or tea, or make a wonderful souffle of some sort. And that way you save the milk. You save what you milk for, what you harvest, right? But we got too much cream. There's too much goddamn cream around. We're not getting the results we need. Okay. So you, my wonderful, especially my Canadian audience, okay, talk to your MPs when it comes to that. The federal MPs when it comes to defense spending and procurement. How come you're not fighting hard enough to get this done? How come you're not fighting hard enough and saying to the procurement minister, shit or get off the pot? What's going on? What's the delay? If we can give so many millions and billions away to one little nation to go pew pew and bang bang, why can't we go pew pew and bang bang here? Huh? Why can't we? What are you afraid of? Right? Because there's that everlasting reliance on our friends to the south. Now, hats off to my American friends. Hats off to my American friends that I served with overseas. And hats off to the average American out there who just goes to work, minds his or her business, wants to raise their family, live in peace and security and freedom, just like us Canucks do. Okay? But see, down there, that peace and security and freedom is defended. It's still defended up here. You just got to beg, borrow, and steal to get it. And in some cases, you have to go and protest the capital city to be heard. See what I'm getting at here, ladies and gentlemen? Now, before I get pissed off and angry here, I do have a couple of articles I will include in the description just to back up my point or my points in regards to the procurement process. And how many times the Chrétien government canceled a program which cost the Canadian taxpayers $500 million back in 1993, right? And then to turn around and try to buy it again. Kind of like what we're doing with the F35 fighter jet. It was canceled before, now it's being brought back. So it's costing us more money. So which is it? Okay? Now there's so-called experts who might have spent some time in the Air Cadets who think they know exactly what to do when it comes to getting a fighter jet, right? They would say the F-16, right? Or the F-15. F-15 is an excellent jet, right? I got to see them fly overseas. Fuck, they're nasty. They're beautiful, too. Even the A-10 Warthog's a beautiful bird, okay? But what we need for Canada is efficiency. They say the F-35 can do it. I would say the F-18A could probably do it, the new F-18. But it's just a matter of them procuring it and who they want to help out. They can't broaden their horizons. They can't think outside the box because they're afraid to. Plus, some lobbyists have their little investments there too, again, the government money, which is taxpayers' money, right? So when it comes to defense procurement, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest my Canadian audience out there, you really hammer your MPs about it and make them discuss it in Parliament. Because I actually had a conversation with an ex-Conservative MP there a few months back with my friends at Northern Perspective. And I asked him a question about the defense thing. And his excuse was, now get this, I've heard this before. Okay. Well, my constituents never really talked about it. Really? When they'd see those coffins coming down the highway of heroes, they never talked about it at all? Never? Really? Never? So, if you're an MP and you're watching this podcast, listen to this podcast, don't hand me your bullshit excuses, especially to a guy that spent 20 years in the service. I had to do 20 years to get my pension. All you guys got to do is 6. See, there's a point right there too when it's coming from the top. Cut from the top to find these issues can be solved. And if there's a money allotted to buy something, then get off your ass and buy something. It's that simple. Right? Who cares what the board thinks? Think about the sailors going to be on that ship. Think about the drivers and crew commanders going to be driving that tank. Okay? Think about the infantry soldier that's going to be trying out that new rifle or trying out that new sight system. Right? Think about that. Those are the guys you have to ask and talk to. Not some board member who sits in Charlottetown on the holidays and eats pastries, or some board member who sits in Halifax, can't decide what kind of fucking tires to buy. You talk to the men and women that are going to be using this equipment. It's that simple. But no, we got to take a simple thing and elongate it and spend more money towards that to find a consultant to consult the consultants to give us a final answer. Gotcha. Gee, I was way off.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 352, Canada's ongoing slack defense. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. And just a reminder too, ladies and gentlemen, if you like to hear what you see, click like, subscribe, share this podcast all over your social media platforms and all that good stuff. Give me a thumbs up, comments, and all that too. If you see this in the premiere, let me know you're out there. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what you're doing, how you're doing, all that good stuff. And there's no prejudice here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't tolerate any racial BS. I don't tolerate any religious BS. Just try to be people and try to be good and civil to each other to the best of your ability. Like I said, I'll have links in my description where you can follow, where you can see an example of the defense procurement process in this country for the better part of 30 years, not to mention what happened before. I remember in 1987, Brian Mulroney come out with a defense paper report, 1987 defense report, how to upgrade this. They're going to get new submarines, nuclear submarines that were going to help our Arctic big time. The DEW line was still decent. It was still up to certain standards, but now it's null and void. Null and void. And when you hear Carney talk about defense issues, he basically stole Pierre Poilievre's lines when it comes to making the Arctic more reinforced and putting bases up there. That was Poilievre's plan. So the man's a plagiarist, to be honest with you, so he can't be trusted. Who knows what he's talking to the king about today? He's in England today. He had a little video with Keir Starmer meeting and talking about things, and he was with Macron and talking about things, how much money they can rip off for people. You know how it works, right? You know, the whole woke elite, right? And they're bullshit. But hey, who am I? I'm digressing. But when it comes to procuring for this country, we've got to use common sense and do what's practical. What is going to work for Canada? Not what's going to work for this group here or this company here. What's going to work for the men and women that'll be using this equipment to defending this nation? Right? It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. What if a major city in this country said they wanted to budget cut and save money, and instead of buying their fire department proper fire hoses, what would happen if they say, hey, we got a Canadian distributor that can give you all these garden hoses? Wouldn't that be fantastic? You can still do your job. You got to work really harder and nothing's guaranteed. But hey, they're a Canadian company and they make garden hoses. I wonder how many firefighters would tolerate that shit. Hey, think about that. So if you know a firefighter who wouldn't tolerate that kind of procurement bullshit, then why is it okay for our men and women in uniform to settle for our procurement bullshit? Something to think about, folks. Anyhow, I've been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 17th of March, St. Patrick's Day. My friends out there, I had a terrible Irish accent, needless to say. I guess everyone has a little bit of Irish in them, right? Or if they want to, you know. But time will tell. My family roots, basically, I looked up my family name, and there's roots in Ireland and Scotland. So I got the best of both worlds and a little bit of English, too. So I guess you can say I'm British. That's why I carry the Union Jack around there in my show. Because I like Britain. I think Britain's pretty cool. But, you know, I love Canada, too. And I like my American friends as well. So, hey, it's all good, ladies and gentlemen. Anyhow, happy St. Patrick's Day out there to everybody. Keep your wits about you. Do what you can in these trying times. Weather is pretty good in this area. So just be sensible. It's kind of slippery on the road. So don't be too anxious to get someplace fast. And just help your neighbors out. If someone's shy a few bucks, give them a hand. Give yourself a hand, and be good to yourselves too, ladies and gentlemen. Right? And I should be on probably another episode probably this Wednesday evening. So, you know, keep those chins up. Keep calm, keep cool, keep collected, and do your best to be good to people. And like I always say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Oh, yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.
Well, smack my ass and call me Judy.